Hello everybody, I hope that you are well. Today I'm going to be tackling the topic of how to stay safe while you travel solo. This is probably most people's biggest concern when they think about traveling solo for the first time. And yes, it is something that you always need to be thinking about when you're traveling solo, your safety. However, I can assure you that things are probably not as bad as you think. Generally, the only news you ever tend to hear about backpackers is bad news, and global news only really tends to focus on the negative aspects of what's going on in different countries. And I get that all this negative press can make you extremely anxious about going anywhere by yourself. And what you don't really hear about are the hundreds of thousands of backpackers who go traveling solo, they have a great trip, no problems in particular, they come home safe, and they're fine. And the reality is that things might only go wrong if you are extremely stupid or just extremely unlucky. There's going to be an element of risk with everything that you do in life, unless you never leave your house, but even then that can present its risks. You just have to look after yourself as much as you can to lower the risk of things going wrong and to keep yourself safe. And it's the same concept whether you're traveling solo, competing in a sport, going on a night out with friends. Anyway, now that I've said all that, here are my tips specifically for solo travelers to stay safe and reduce risk of danger. Always carry a charged phone with you, preferably an unlocked one which you can put a local SIM in for 3G, because the internet is a wonderful thing when you are by yourself and need questions answered, and it's accessible these days. There's also the obvious that you can make emergency phone calls when you have a phone, but a big one for me is to have Google Maps. I recommend downloading the offline map of wherever you're going to be traveling. Then even if you have no 3G, no service, you still know exactly where you are and you can get to the place you're needing to get to without too many issues. I find this particularly handy, one, on bus rides, so that you know that you're getting off at the right stop, especially in countries where you don't speak their language. And two, in taxis and tuk-tuks, make sure that they're going in the right direction and they're not just driving around in circles to rip you off and make the journey longer. Walk and stand with confidence, even if you don't have the foggiest clue. Dodgy people, whatever the country, target the vulnerable looking ones. The ones who look lost in their body language, their facial expression. Make the locals believe that you live there and know exactly what you're doing. Stay in a hostel, because that is the easiest way to make friends and you will never be alone. Always carry a padlock and lock up your valuables in lockers. That's something to always look for when you're choosing a hostel as well. A good hostel will always have lockers. Always have a way to conceal your valuables when you're out and about, so zip-up bags are always a good idea. You don't want just a big open bag where people can see all the contents and then easily grab it. I personally wouldn't go anywhere off the beaten track by yourself, especially at night. Go on a tour or find someone in the hostel to go with you, even if it's staff. I once needed to go get cash out quite urgently at 11 p.m. because I had a bus at 5 a.m. in the morning and I was in Nicaragua, and I got the hotel receptionist to come with me to head out to the ATM at night. Don't get so drunk or so high that you can't look after yourself. Know your limits. Even if you've made friends, they have no obligation to look after you. And even if you feel like you can trust them, just don't get yourself into that state. Take responsibility for yourself. And this one might be obvious, but unless you are literally by the beach or by the pool, don't wear clothes that are too revealing, and respect the country's rules. This of course will be very different depending on where you are, and maybe you're in Australia, maybe you're in Dubai, but just use your common sense and be respectful. Try not to tell people that you're traveling solo unless they're fellow backpackers in your hostel. If a creepy man comes up to you on the street and asks you if you have a boyfriend, yes you do, and he's just around the corner, so back off. You don't actually need to say back off, but give those vibes, you know? If you do happen to go venturing off by yourself, try to always remember to tell someone where you're going. I do this without even thinking now, but it's so important. If you're about to leave your dorm room, tell your roommate. I try to always make a connection with the hotel reception staff, and then whenever I literally leave the hostel, I'll tell them where I'm going, or if that feels awkward to you, just ask them for advice on where you're about to go, and then they automatically know where you've gone. And heck, even if you're messaging someone at the time, let them know too where you're going, even if they're 1,000 miles away, because at least then you have it in writing. The more people you tell, 1, you might get a buddy. 2, you might get some tips. And 3, should something go wrong or you don't return, you've got several people wondering where you are. They know where you left to go to and at what time. Make sure you always know your local country's emergency contact number. And actually, if you have an iPhone, if you click the lock button 5 times, it will automatically call your local emergency services wherever you are in the world. And actually, also on an iPhone, you can set up your own emergency contacts and ID, which people can can access on your phone without a password. Perhaps I should have mentioned this one at the beginning, but make sure before you go that you have travel insurance. Yes, it can be expensive, especially if you're going for a long time, but this is the most important thing that you need to factor into your backpacking budget. I do recommend World Nomads for backpacker insurance in particular, because they're one of the only companies I know that allows you to extend as you go. So if your travels go on for longer than you expected and your initial insurance doesn't allow you to extend, if that makes sense, this one does. But honestly, if you're just going on like a fixed holiday and you've got return flights and you know exactly how long you're going for, I would literally just go on something like comparethemarket.com, choose the cheapest one that comes up that fits your trip. Just make sure that you have all the activities included that you're planning on doing, because some are higher risk than others, like skydiving, snowboarding, scuba diving, you know, make sure you have all of that covered if you're planning on doing those activities. And if you have a drone or especially expensive gear, make sure you've got that covered too. And another thing I perhaps should have mentioned at the beginning is to make sure that you are as healthy and well prepared for the countries that you're going to be traveling to as possible. Make sure that before you go and visit your local travel health clinic so you can get any vaccinations or any medication that you might need for that particular place. I actually recommend doing this as soon as possible when you know you're going on the trip, because there are some vaccinations that need to be done over a long period of time, like several vaccinations. I know I needed to do that for Tanzania, so just be aware and prepared for that. And other than this, just be savvy with your decision on where to go. If you are really unsure about going somewhere solo, go somewhere else, or book yourself onto a group tour when you've got someone who's going to be looking out for you the whole time. You're guaranteed to never be alone and you're going to be taken to the right spots. Staying safe while you're traveling solo is really an easy task if you are sensible. It's really just about minimizing your vulnerability to reduce the likelihood of unwanted situations occurring. I really hope you enjoyed this video and feel a little bit more comfortable about the idea of staying safe while solo traveling. It's definitely possible. I'm making a bunch of other videos in this solo travel motivation series, so if there is anything in particular that you would like to hear me talk about, then do let me know in the comments, and I will see you in the next video. I'm really sorry about the background noise as well. He's been doing that all day. Bye!